We are live. It's 3 p.m.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can we stand for a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, get a roll call, please, Laurel.
Mr. Behrens?
Here.
Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Mr. Frericks?
Here.
Ms. Lautner?
Present.
Mr. Noonan?
Here.
Mr. Popa?
Here.
Mr. Robbins?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Walter?
Here.
And Mr. Jonas?
Here.
All present.
Okay, is there any public comment?
The number to call in if you wish to comment publicly is 231-256-8109.
Give it just a minute here.
Are you public, Chuck?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick update. My name is Chet Janik, County Administrator. Just a quick update. There were some questions this morning about this type of meetings, and I just wanted to quickly let you know that last night the Board of Commissioners did pass a resolution declaring a state of emergency, which means all units of government in Leelanau County can now meet remotely. They can meet in person or they can be a hybrid. So anybody appointed to a board has the option of either participating in person or remotely as of last night. So I know there's been some confusion about that. Some people called this morning. For example, whether Casey could participate remotely. To use Casey as an example, if this meeting was held yesterday, Casey could not have participated remotely and voted. Because it's held today, Casey can participate and vote on the meeting going forward, and this is June 30th. My other quick comment is there was a special meeting yesterday of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and they reviewed the request from Mr. Barron for a bench at Veronica Valley, and that passed 2-0. We have two members of two commissioners on board, and they'll go to the board, the full board of commissioners at the May meeting, which is plenty of time for the June fish outing for the kids. But I understand you want the bench there by June. And so thank you for the meeting. I thought very well, and there'll be a recognition. So they'll be on the May 10th meeting of the Board of Commissioners to approve the request for the bench.
10 through 11.
10th or 11th, yeah, one of those. So just a quick update on the Open Meetings Act and what your options now, as well as every unit of government in Leelanau County now has an option. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
All right. Is there any other public comment, Laurel?
Yep, you can go to the.
Okay.
Speaking of hybrid, but not meetings, but of bluegills, I'm Alan Cantwell. I'm a co-chair of the kids fishing with Lonnie Rademacher, and things are looking very good for this year. We've had discussions about what we can do under the pandemic orders, and as of now, we could have 300 people, and we'll make sure that this is a safe safe event. I have to tell you, we've got really good buy-in. Lonnie and I have been going around the sponsors. I know this organization, PAC, we approved $1,000 towards it. All the businesses have been turned down, and I don't think Lonnie has either. So we lost a year, and it's time to go out and watch kids have fun. So thank you.
Wonderful. So may I just make a point, Mr. Sheriff?
Sure.
27th of June, so everybody can put it on their calendar, the last Sunday.
Last Sunday,
Last
right?
Sunday in June, so 27th. Bring
Sure.
the first 300 people with their grandchildren through the door.
We'll see. This thing changes quite a bit, so I don't know where we'll be there, but I think we'll be in a better place.
Right, yeah.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say the thing that makes this thing go is help from so many people in the community and in government. We sure do appreciate the parks and all they've done for us. The DNR and Heather, everybody knows Heather has been fantastic for this event. She steps to the plate every year. I don't know where she finds the time, but we sure do appreciate her help. Thank you.
Thank you and Lonnie for doing this too.
Yes, thank you.
And we miss Pete. I mean, that's so obvious, but I should have said it.
Okay, any other public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to agenda additions or deletions. Does anyone have anything to add or delete?
Casey?
Yes.
I had added a parks budget discussion, and the chief deputy clerk was gonna come in and speak on that issue. She had a conflict and cannot make it, but she has asked that anyone who has budget-related questions, direct them to me. I will formulate a Q&A that she can respond to and send a response back to all members. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so we can remove that item for now. I had one thing to add under Miles Kimmerly is baseball field discussions. I got a call from Randy Weber, the baseball coach, just a couple days ago, and just want to relay some information from him. Other than that, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. We are on to the proposed fish stocking at Veronica Valley.
Heather, I guess you can take off and begin us.
Okay, sounds good. So Laurel should have distributed a document to you guys this morning that looks hugely familiar. I realized this morning that it's the same one that I've been giving you guys since 2012. It's hard to believe it's been that long. But what I did, because last year was a little goofy, what I did for comparison's sake was that I looked at 2019 and what you guys purchased in 2019 to kind of give us an even comparison. If you guys remember in 2020, because the Lake Association wasn't having the event, they didn't solicit a ton of donations. The county Parks and Rec Board stepped up and purchased the fish solo, essentially. So it's a little bit apples to oranges for comparison's sake. So looking at 2021 versus 2019, if we do the same order, which would be 2,000 hybrid bluegill from the County Parks and Rec Commission, splitting the shipping with the Lake Leelanau Association, because they also plan on purchasing fish this year, the grand total will be $4,292.50. That is an increase of $60. So not a ton of increase. Even with everything going on, our fish provider has been able to keep things pretty reasonable. That reflects an increase of 0.03 cents per fish. So very, very small increase. You can kind of see toward the bottom of the first page, I break down what the contributions for both groups will be. So the County Parks and Rec Commission is on the right. The Lake Leelanau Association is on the left. They would be purchasing 1,500 bluegill in addition to the proposed 2,000 that we have here. So that would give us a total of 3,500 fish. If you scroll to the bottom of the document, you can see that our stocking strategy has been very similar over time. So we would do 1,500 fish in the kids pond from the Fish Day Committee. We would put 1,000 fish bought by the County Parks and Rec Commission in the front pond. And then we would split the remaining 1,000 fish in the 2 long ponds, if you will, or the ponds toward the back of the property. That's what we've been doing for a few years now. It works pretty well. We do end up having some folks break away from the event and going to the back ponds. I see a lot of folks back there in the later summertime too. Even though they're a little weedy, they can get away from the crowds. So pretty much standard issue. This is like I said, this is a document you guys have seen for quite a few years now. And not much has changed. I will say we've been monitoring the pond as far as fish numbers go. We're still pretty darn happy with the balance of fish that are in the ponds. There's the bluegill, of course, which do very well. And we do get a little bit of natural reproduction, not quite enough to really not stock the pond. These hybrid bluegills are typically, the way that they breed them, the breeding strategy ends up with them being about 80 to 90% male. So you have some chance for natural reproduction, but it takes you a couple generations down the road to kind of balance that male to female ratio back out. So bluegill numbers look good. We do get holdover through the winter. We're still seeing some bullhead and white suckers, some little yellow perch, enough of that stuff in there to keep the bass fat and happy and not eating all of our bluegill. The numbers of bass are still pretty adequate in there. So we're pretty comfortable with only stocking bluegill for right now. We may want to look at some bass to supplement down the road, but it would be a few years before that. So as I said, this is pretty much the standard request. We can make any amendments to it that we need to, but this is the typical proposal that I'm bringing forth to you guys this afternoon.
Are there any questions for Heather?
Heather, this is Steve. I was wondering about the, in 2019, apparently there was going to be a netting and a report. Did that happen?
It did. I'm trying to think if it was 2019 or not. I believe it was. I'll have to go back and check the date. So I was unable to participate in that netting event. The biologist for the tribe at the time, Jim Garavalia, Jim and his crew did that netting effort. And I have seen that data. I will look around for it. I do not recall if he sent me only the raw data or if he actually sent me a report, but either way, I will look around and find that and I will get it to you guys.
Excellent. It's good to hear that there must have been some bass in that report. The previous report didn't have any bass, but it's obvious by walking the ponds and seeing some bass being caught that the bass are there. And if the data shows the bass, that would be reassuring. But I'm glad that the balance is still there, and I'm glad you're feeling comfortable with it, and I really appreciate your weighing in and watching over this for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a gem. I think you guys are in a really unique situation to have a pond like this, not only from the biological aspect, but just the fact of how well it gets used. The bass are a little bit tough. We know that they're there anecdotally. I get a couple pictures every year of some cute small child holding a bass that's just about as long as them. So lots of anecdotal information. When we net in there, it's tough to net. And Jim and I, before he left, we're trying to figure out a way to do some electrofishing in there to better get at the bass. The pond is so shallow and the water is so clear that those big bass are smart and they will avoid our gear. So it's really hard to catch those fish in that net. So a lot of our bass information is simply from observation or anecdotal catch report. But I think with as much use as the pond gets, it's important to keep an eye on it and make sure that we have a pretty good balance and make sure that it's a resource that continues to be available and be as productive as it can.
Heather, we are going to have another chemical treatment of the fishing ponds. We are working with and instructing Savage Lake Services that we want a mix of open area and weedy habitat, as you and I have talked about some. I don't have that plan, exactly where we'll try to leave weeds, et cetera, et cetera. But at least one more year, we're going to do that.
And I will say Slavin has been very good to work with. I've had lots of conversations with their staff. They've been really good at communicating. They understand that this is a much different effort and water body than what they're typically used to. And they appreciate the fact that we don't just want to nuke the whole pond. There is some strategy here. And so they've been very good to work with and very good at understanding. Those companies, I mean, they're out to make a living too. So a lot of times they like to sell as much product and as much labor as they possibly can to get that. It's good business. But they understand what this pond is. And so they're willing to maybe not be as profitable and do this kind of for the greater good, the greater effort. So they've been very, very good to work with.
I'm going to, working with Paul, I'm going to investigate whether, with our contract, if we use less product in the front ponds, could we stripe a couple of swaths across the back ponds? Because as you noted already, those are pretty heavily infested. We haven't addressed that issue as yet. But that may be one strategy we are able to pull out this spring.
Probably not a bad idea.
Okay.
Any other questions for Heather? Dave, do you want to make a motion?
Well, I make a motion that we recommend approval of the purchase of the fish as described in Heather's outline here for a cost of $4,292.50. The total cost, that's fish and shipping for this year.
And you want to add Lagos Fish Farm of Goals in there?
Purchase of the fish for that price from Lagos Fish Farm in Goals, yes.
And that's a recommendation to the county board.
That's a recommendation, because that's the process we're going through, correct? Yeah. So I move that we recommend to the full county board this purchase from Lagos Fish Farm.
Support.
That'll do. I was going to amend your motion to say we would approve this purchase and recommend to the Board of Commissioners. But either way, as long as we're covered, that's fine.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any other discussion?
The
Those in favor of the
motion should
motion say
say,
aye. Oh, go ahead, John.
the motion should say the proposed 2021. It just says the report as submitted by Heather and it's not signed or nothing or dated.
Yeah, he did say the price though, and Lagos, so.
This is what I have written down.
Please.
Motion by Barron's to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve the purchase of fish for the Veronica Valley Park Pond from Lagos Fish Farms of Goals, Michigan, in amount not to exceed $42.92.50.
That's great.
Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you, guys. We certainly appreciate your continued support. And sorry I couldn't join you guys today, but have a great afternoon, everybody.
You as well.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. Historically, if I can add a comment, the Parks and Rec Commission lends their support to Kids Fish Day. And we've done that to the tune of $500 additional purchase of bluegills on a yearly basis. And if I have that right, Alan, I believe I do, that's how that comes through.
Yeah, I mean, you remember more about that than I did, and, you know, kind of our legacy guy, if he was here, he ripped that right off. And they'll tell you, but that's my understanding of how that has always worked in the past.
And it comes as a bill from the Leelanau Lake Association for $500 worth of fish. It's a bill for fish. So we typically have a part of a fish that's purchased that way. But that's what we've done in the past, and I move that we continue that and accept a bill from Leelanau Lake Association for fish amounting to and exceeding the cost of $500.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Just to be clear, Steve, for all of us, this is an additional $500 above the $42,9250.
Correct.
Right. And that's from Parks and Rec Commission.
It's an additional purchase
Right.
from Parks and Rec Commission.
I guess my question is, does that additional purchase, has that gone before the full Board of Commissioners before? Or because of the $500, are we free to do that, make that decision?
It's under the amount that you would require their approval.
So we can just do that one.
It's kind of like taking care of the monkey flower.
Got it?
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, anything else under Kids Fish Day? Moving on, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from March 17th regular session.
Move to approve the minutes from the 17th.
Second.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to approval of financials.
Hey Casey,
Hey Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. Financials for this month are not final as usual, and we're at a whopping 4.82%.
Scott, could you take your mask off, because they're very muffled, thank you.
Our financials are at 4.82%. Nothing really outstanding.
Was your, the repair and maintenance, was that on the groomer?
Yes.
And then contractual services, that's not outhouses yet, is it?
Just started with the outhouses, yeah.
I saw some bills come through claims and accounts, but were those for Parks and Rec already? Maybe they were.
Yeah, it's trash pickup and,
Okay.
I have a question. Repair and maintenance, we've got it at 30,000. And I guess the question is, how much do we anticipate of the 30,000 are we going to need this year?
Depends on how much more you
well, let me look at my crystal ball.
Shine that puppy up. Let's hear it.
I don't know. We haven't had any water leaks this spring, so that's, that ate up a bunch of it last year.
So the irrigation for the soccer field, basically?
Fresh water, drinking water.
Drinking water, okay.
I can't answer it.
Yeah, I understand. So last year, the drinking water was a big one. We had to rip up
Right. tear up asphalt and all that.
That probably 820 grand right there, or whatever it was, do you remember? Ballpark?
John, go ahead.
What about repair and maintenance of the trails in the park? Would that fall under the maintenance?
As far as the quote that the bid that we sent out,
I would think so, yeah.
no, it would fall under contractual services. But that would have to be.
It would seem to be a combination if we're gonna maintain the trails. I don't know.
Might be a question for Jen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Start that list.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
John, go ahead.
When we approved to replace that culvert, because it's rotten and rusty and all that, we told the board and they approved it, and we gave them the figure out of capital. I don't know when the bill comes in, is that something we could put under maintenance?
Again, that would be for Jen, you know. I would think it would fall under maintenance, but
It might.
I don't know, I can't answer.
Just to answer Steve's question, is there any maintenance items coming up? And that might be, I don't know.
Jen does know the answer to how much we can slide, where we can slide from line to line.
It's not an issue now, but when the bill comes in, we might.
Right. And sticking with that, you know, one of the questions we all need to have in our heads that I've never had clear the 4 years I've been on the commission is how much money each year total do the three parts have to spend on, whether we call it repair and maintenance or capital expenditure or what, how much money do we have? Questions that we need to direct to Jen need to head towards that clarity. So, I mean, we know we're gonna spend on the culvert, on the fish, on the weed management. And roughly that adds up to almost 10,000 right now. How much more do we have left out of any way we can shift the lines around for projects that we have in mind? Of course,
Well, it shows it here.
What was the salmon, contract for?
Savin Lake Services?
Yeah,
2475.
yeah, because we've got fish, salmon lake, culvert, and monkey flower so far.
What we need is that working document we put together for the budget last year, which is the list of wishes, we might say, and they're in somewhat of an order. But what all we put on there, I know there was a lot of things we put on there. We won't get to all of them with this amount of money.
I don't think, I mean, Todd, have you ever had a sense each year of, after all the regular expenses, I mean, it's got salary and all the other stuff that goes in, have you ever had a?
Every
sense-
year, it's the same thing. At the end of the year, we're rushing to spend the money because it's sitting there and we don't want to lose it. But starting out in the year, I would say, to me, maintenance expenses is for equipment. Capital would be for property, like building the grub shack. We didn't put that under, is it even not?
Yes.
The growth, that's under contractual, I believe. I think.
Yeah, but not under
I mean,
maintenance.
capital. I think we did it under capital.
Yeah, capital
Yeah.
improvement, it wouldn't be under maintenance, so anything to the property itself would be a capital improvement, and anything to a tractor or things that get broken, trucks and things like that would be repair and maintenance. But as far as your question, no, I mean, I don't know how much we can, I mean, it's every year something new happens, like the water line last year, or a well, or a culvert, or,
Oh, sure.
so.
But if we know we've spent somewhere, Steve, did you just add all those up? What is it?
I was just gonna do that right now.
We've already know we've committed ourselves to 10 plus expenditure this year. What does that leave
Does that include the trail?
in the pool, whether we call it capital or maintenance?
Well, I don't know if that's what Steve was trying to get at, see if he could steal some money for the Miles Kimberly chuckling about it, but
I think that's all in the future.
We support that.
we do, but it doesn't need to come from that. I mean, it's gotta come from somewhere else. The miles money, and you're saving money just by not paying Gosling anymore every year for your park, so.
Well, true.
Those monies can go for the culvert and things like that, so.
That's correct, but I still have never had a sense that we've been clear in our discussions of, okay, we spent this much, we know we've got roughly this much, so we've only got this much left. I've never had that simple.
No, our sense has always been in November saying, what the hell we gotta buy now?
So this is part of the question, we've all got to send questions to Laurel, so you can get them out to Jen and get our frequently asked questions answered.
Go ahead, John.
I make a motion, we approve these financials as submitted.
I'll second
Support.
that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so for a motion to support or approve the financials, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Scott.
opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, John.
Okay, moving on to the dogs in parks.
Hello, I know the sheriff doesn't join us. My name's Wayne Pelchick. I'm the animal control deputy for the sheriff's office.
He's locked up.
Oh, yeah. Wait, oh, there's that.
I frequently visit all the public parks and trails and recreation areas within the county. Especially the county parks pretty frequently, usually a couple times a week. And from time to time, Steve Christensen and I just talk about, how things are going in the parks and that kind of thing. So we communicate, not regularly, but, when a situation arises. And I did contact him a while back, just kind of inform him of some things that are going on, especially around the valley, as it relates to dogs at large. And just to kind of, sum up as quickly as I can, 99% of the time when I encounter people with dogs off leash in the park, it's just communication, letting them know that, it's dogs have to be on a leash. Most of the time, people are pretty cooperative and it's not an issue. I did have a situation a couple months ago with a gentleman who actually went through 4 different contacts. We asked him to put his dog on a leash, and I had actually written him a previous citation for that. And he actually did plead guilty to. On the 4th instance, he claimed that he was hunting. And so that kind of opens up, what are the exemptions in state law for allowing dogs off leash as it relates to hunting. But at the time, I was pretty confident that he was not hunting, just based on his behavior and what he was doing in the park at the time. But he also made a statement that he was also training his dog. Now, in state law, one of the exceptions is hunting dogs are allowed for activities in which they are trained. So I made a mention that, the hunting exemption is for dogs that are trained and used in accordance with their training. But then doing some research on the case, I came across a notation in the digest that says all areas open to hunting are open to training. So his claim that he was training his dog while hunting allows him to use the hunting exemption. Now, what I did find out in the midst of all of this through the DNR law division was not only can someone claim that they're hunting, but if they have no intention of taking an animal, they don't have to have a license, nor do they have to wear hunter's orange. There are a number of species that are open hunting year round. So other than the state mandated dog training restriction, which is parts of May, June, of July, the park would be open for people who claim that they're training their dogs and or hunting. So I communicated that with Steve, because that's, for me, something that I don't want to see start becoming the norm, where every time I contact somebody in the park, they say, well, hunting. So that was the situation in which I communicated to Steve, is that it was an issue. I've actually run into that same issue in other public areas within the county, on state properties and within the national park. So it is something that I do run into. And our discussion was based on, if that expands, and people start using that reason for having their dogs off leash, could that cause other problems? So he just asked if we would come and answer the questions you might have. At this point in time, I do want to make it clear, there was no complaint filed in this case. It was just routine patrol, meeting contacts in the public. And the number of complaints that we have are not great. We've had an injury in the park in the Rocket Valley as it relates to dog off leash. So it is a concern for me, that dogs are out there running around. And in that injury case, a dog ran into a woman and it tore some ligaments in her knee, and she had to have surgery. So it can be an issue. So I just wanted to let Steve know what was going on. So he asked if we'd come just answer the questions. From there, I'll just do what I can to answer your questions. I met with Mr. Popa and answered some questions he had. Yep.
So the law was written quite a long time ago, I expect, and there's probably not a lot of detail in it. It's probably kind of vague, such as you are allowed to do things like track a deer across property, or your dog, allowed to take your dog into tracking a wounded animal or something.
What the law states is allowed falls within the definition of hunting. You probably know it more better.
Right, I guess my question would be, do they have to prove to you what kind of training method they're using? Does it have to be a certain type of, like a trainable dog? Or they can be out there with their little poodle and say they're training him to chase coyotes? What?
No, it's an exemption. It's unclear. It's like make a statement, what's good ice cream? Subjective to you, it's all different. So basically, it's a rabbit hole I don't particularly want to go down. I would advise the committee not to. That's why we're here together. Wayne was having trouble, this guy complying. And of course, everybody's always trying to do a workaround. They're special, When it comes down to it, there was talk about, well, geez, should we even allow hunting in there, this and that. Well, when I started that entire project with Veronica Valley, I was a conservation officer. I really wanted to have these kids fishing days and have places to hunt. My daughter kept her horse in Grant's barn on the north end of that property, Annie Rankin's farm. And I knew they were selling it, and I talked to Mr. Grant, and I said, if there's any way you can wait, let me get the Natural Resources Trust Fund. If I can get behind this and we buy Veronica Valley, one, it doesn't get developed. Two, we continue to fish an adjuvant species there, as well as native brook trout and browns. And three, we can deer hunt on both sides of the road. And as it's all progressed, I've taken several disabled veterans on deer hunts in there. It's one of the places I take them. And there are limited hunting opportunities on the north side of the road, more so on the south. But the main thing is the fishery there. And when money's purchased, when money purchases property from the Natural Resources Trust Fund, that's basically oil and gas revenue money. Can you all hear me with this, okay? That's basically oil and gas revenue money that comes from state lands, from the leases for the oil and gas minerals. And the idea was we would buy property and keep it open to public use, cross-country skiing, hunting, fishing, bird watching, whatever. And there will be things that come up, like drones. There'll be things that wasn't in the technology field at that time. There'll be things that may come up. What if someone's doing drone airstrip there, or have, model airplane flights around there? There are things I think the park will need to address, but I would hate to see an issue with one person who's basically thumbing their nose at the rules and law turn into something where you would close part of the park, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would like to see the recreational opportunities remain for hunting and fishing, and that's why I'm here primarily. I want to make sure that if we're talking the game, we're doing the game. So you want people to hunt and fish when they grow up, give them a place to take their grandkids fishing. That has been phenomenal, what Heather's done, what all of you, Jen Popa, every one of you in here has had some component in that. Somebody's helped somewhere by donating money as being part of the association, or you volunteer time, or many of us go down there and untangle rods. but it's really worked out well. And it is, as Heather said, kind of a model for other communities to follow. I mean, that we could get a chunk of property with a live trout stream on it for native fishing, as well as ponds. And the ponds are maintenance. I mean, you're gonna have to, you know, copper sulfate's gotta go in that water to kill the plankton and the phytoplankton and stuff at some point. You're gonna have to do some manual cutting of weeds, but sans that, where else can you point around, say, you can take any kid on flat ground fishing, put up a lawn chair and catch fish year round. So that's why I'm here. Wayne and I, we did have this with this guy, which made it difficult, but I'd hate to see us throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right, so, but this gentleman is still responsible for his dog if it, say, does bite
Correct.
someone. He's still responsible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you would be, whether you're in a park or not.
Right.
And what Wayne is saying, I totally understand. So if everybody starts looking at this, say, gee, all you have to do is say you're hunting, I can take my dog anywhere, I can run without a leash. You know, that dog law was written in 1919?
Yes.
1919, then this park didn't even come into place till sometime after 2000, we start politicking it for sale. And there's gonna be amendments and things you all do. So I just would hate to see that have any influence on your decision-making on parks and ability to hunt and fish and do.
Question, if Wayne and I have had a conversation previous to this about leash, and I just wanted to clarify that in this park. If someone has a well-behaved dog, on command, that dog will be at your side or doing exactly what it should be doing. Is there a way to honor the hunting and the likes of that, and yet at the same time, not allow people that have a dog that is not responding? Because if a dog is running free and not responding to the master, and not only is it not on a leash, but it's an uncontrolled dog. And if the dog is not the type of dog that is smart enough not to bite somebody, we'd have a problem. So how can we dovetail those together?
Subjectively, we can't. It's
Okay.
basically saying that's a good dog, that's a bad dog. And honestly, when it comes to law, you can say it must be leashed, or it has to this or that, but it's pretty hard to say this one can't. I know exactly what you're saying. A lot of dogs, you don't have to talk, just all hand signals.
Bingo.
They fetch, they heel. There's dogs that don't bite other people, but it's too subjective at that point. So the DNR and Parks Division has a rule, when I was a DNR, I enforced that as well. Your dogs must be on a 6-foot leash under your control at all times. And that's because people have these 50-foot leashes that retract, and a dog can run across the road and bite somebody, or dog fight with their dogs. Whenever there's too many people, you have problems. You know, if you all lived on farms, your dog run around, you never need a leash or electric fence, but unfortunately, we're getting more and more people, more and more parks. But that would be too subjective. So the objectivity on that, and I know the National Park has rules on dog leashes as well. There's common sense and enforcement. That I would say without reservation is the finest animal control deputy I've ever met in my life. It has nothing to do with him working for us. That's just a fact. His reading, writing, his comprehension, his reports, the way he treats animals and people, just good as I've ever seen anywhere. That said, he's constantly put into this conundrum. And there's an area in the south part of the county where someone walks their dog and someone else walking their dog, and the dog's attacked by another dog on private property running out. And he's always in this situation of, was the dog supposed to be here or there? And then people feel sorry for the dogs. Well, my dog runs too, and his dog shouldn't have been out, and his dog bites, it should have been at least. He's constantly thrust into this as this situation. It probably hurts his pride, honestly, to have this guy thumb his nose at the law and say, I'm training my dog for hunting. It's probably would hurt his pride or anybody else just trying to enforce the law objectively. But the reality is it would be too subjective to go down that path.
What I do get frequently is the other side. I get calls from people that say, I went to Veronica Valley and I wanted to go for a walk. I can see a dog, I'll take that approach. So I can't use that park because I am afraid of dogs. Or I'm at Peterson Park, and when I pulled in the parking lot, there was a dog running around, so I couldn't go to the park because I'm afraid of dogs, and I can't get out of my car if there's a dog anywhere. So that's what I'm trying to balance, is the rights of people to use the park legally with their dogs, and the rights of people to use the park don't want to have interaction.
Steve had a question.
Wayne, how will you be policing the park rules moving forward with respect to dogs on leash?
Well, currently, moving forward, I'll be policing them the same way that I always have, and that is abiding by the county ordinance and state laws.
So you'll be, if there's a person with a dog off leash, you'll be saying, you need to have that dog on your leash.
Correct.
And if they then claim, well, I'm just hunting it, it's a Brittany's a puppy, I'm just hunting it, you know, can they hunt there? Yes. But it's not hunting season, so that means they're training it. And you know, it gets in that gray area. That's why it's so difficult in this case. We're not changing dog laws.
Did I understand or misunderstand? There's a period during the year where even the training, the claim of training isn't valid.
Yeah, basically while there's birds nest on the ground, like turkeys and grouse eggs and duck eggs, there's a time period, April 15th, June 15th, that was a closed period. However, that gets changed around. There's occasionally exemptions where you can get a permit to like run coons or run coyote and so forth. So it's kind of complicated. So
that's not even permanent final. There's still some gray area.
Well, there's gray areas. Sometimes clubs can get permits to go outside the parameters of that. I just like to keep things simple, understandable for everybody. I think he does a great job. His discretion is good. And I think that we just go forward, as Steve, as you asked, we're gonna do tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm still gonna do the same thing he's been doing. It's just kind of unfortunate circumstance. I think it's a slippery slope to go down, start using a closure for hunting or for the training period in parks and something, you know, you can lose some valuable rights.
But just to follow up on Mr. Mayor's question, even though there's a closed set time period training, there are certain species that are only year round.
Okay.
So
For hunting.
But still claim a hunting exemption during that training period. Until.
So I just have one
Good.
one final question, and it's, we talked about putting in a dog park at the Miles Kimberly Park, where let his dog run out once. Would that satisfy this particular person or this sort?
I don't think so, and this
He
is
likes
why.
that area.
If you said that corner square mile over there between the blue posts, you can run your dog there.
Yeah.
He may like that, but in general, if someone wanted to thumb their nose at the law, they just say, well, I'm training my dog.
Okay.
And we're right back to where we are. That becomes the difficult part. You know, you could technically say, yeah, this schnauzer, he's a red squirrel hunter like you can't believe. You know, and now it's up to you to prove that he's not. Is that an open species year round? Yes, it is. It just gets to the point where it's unfortunate people squabble like that.
What it would do is provide a service to those people who don't have the control over their dogs, like some hunters or people that are trained their dogs. And like, for example, elderly people I run into very frequently. Have the dogs, they've gotten older, the dogs' energy levels still remain, and they have trouble taking the dog places where they can get enough energy release. So it's a service. So if you had a fenced in area, one of the parks or something, then it would be a service for those people to be able to go exercise their dog in a controlled area. But it wouldn't stop people from using the hunter's exemption.
But in that light, and I will say this, Mr. Public Relations here has seen that gentleman in the park a few times, or 2, 3 since then.
Twice since his last time.
He had a heart-to-heart with him, say, would you just kind of go with this, and this is why, and he's seen him twice since then, where his dog is on a leash. So maybe in that light, if there was an area that could be designated, you know, past the ponds, that, but I would say, you all know where Division and 31 meet in Traverse City. You can hardly ever drive by there without seeing a bunch of dogs. They all seem to gravitate there, the dogs play with each other. It allows them to run around. Maybe there's a place for that. And
Yeah, I don't think it fits, I don't think it fit, we checked into it, it didn't fit the DNR for that.
Yeah, and it's really not what that was for, you know, it's for.
But Miles Kimberly, we could.
Yeah.
So, okay, that was Steve. Didn't interrupt Steve. Did you have a question, Steve?
Well, no, Wayne just answered it. I was gonna quiz him about the guy being back. So you answered that, so thank you.
John, go ahead.
Wayne, I think you're doing a super job. Wayne came over to my house for an hour and went over this. They're both, Sheriff and Wayne is telling us not to react to this thing, don't change anything. He's doing a super job. I commend him for it. And you are a good public relations guy, but I think they're just saying they'll explain everything that went on, but they're saying, don't go adding all these little things here and something here and change the rule here and change the sign. He can do it and watch it and keep an eye on a few of those people. But thank you. You do a good job.
You're here.
Thanks for the discussion.
Casey,
Go ahead, Todd.
if I might, are we off the dogs? Are we done with the dogs? Yes. Michael,
Yeah.
can we go back to your past? You said copper sulfite for the ponds. Are you okay with using that as in your former life as the
That'll
DNR?
send you to Eagle and DNR and EQ. I retired from that in 2012. There's policy changes, copper sulfate, not sulfide, but sulfate.
Right.
Is, if you will, the blue pellet put water were used for years, but I'll let them make that. I don't do that anymore.
I know, but
Well, if I had a pond, I would use it, but I had something there.
I've mentioned it every year I've been on this board. I've used it in my ponds my whole life and it's worked
It
wonderful.
works in golf
I even
courses.
offered to buy it for that place, so
So I
I just wanted to.
sure, I would refer to the ag tech people. There's agricultural specialists. and
Another
there's
answer to that is that in the hybrid bluegill, it causes mucus buildup and they don't survive. So we have not used copper sulfate for that reason. Because
So it kills the.
We're going with Heather's
Well,
recommendation.
you go with Heather's
We're going with
recommendation.
Heather's
I
recommendation.
had bluegill in my pond. I had catfish and everything else in my
I know
pond
what to tell
that
you what-
survived every year. So I don't understand how a hybrid bluegill should survive anything.
Well, I don't know either.
I'm just
That's
asking.
Heather's
Thank you, Michael.
recommendation.
Yeah, just the best thing to do is always go with the DNR, DEQ proposals. They call it Eagle now, but best thing to do is let them be your guiding post. And, but yes, I've had ponds before with lots of copper sulfate. There's lots of fish in them, so they're the professionals. Does that satisfy everybody what you need from us?
You're right.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And
Thanks, Wayne.
thank all of you for doing
Thanks,
what you do. That's quote, thankless job. You're all here doing that, but makes the parks nice and the county nice, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Okay, moving on to committee reports. Miles, Kimberly Park Committee. First thing is the trail debris RFP recommendation.
Okay. Well, the last thing that our sheriff said on the way out was make the parks beautiful. So I kind of picked up on that. And the last couple of months, the Miles Kimberly Committee has been trying to prioritize what's the most important thing to do for our Miles Kimberly Park. The top two items are on your agenda today. And the top item agenda was the lawn debris cleanup. I think it was very important.
Scott will show you.
We'll show you.
And I think it's important that we put this in perspective and realize the dollar amount's gonna be big, it's gonna be shocking to you, but we have to find the money for this. We need a green light on this, we really do. I'm almost adamant about that. There's legal issues could be involved, we have a attractive nuisance, if you will, if kids are out there. Just as an aside, the Glen Lake students who are out there on Tuesday, October 4th or 5th, doesn't matter when it was, in response to Patrick Hobbins' request. And Amy White from the high school brought some kids out, 2 busloads of kids, about 40 of them probably, and they went all over the park cleaning up debris. They turned over the earth on a victory garden on the other side of the road and some other things, raked out some flower beds and stuff. And they had a good time. And it was a one-time off thing. It wasn't something that they do all the time. They did it because they had to get out of the school for some testing for the younger kids or something. But I bring that up only because I was out there at the same time and these kids are all over the place. And they're looking for trash to pick up. And where are they gonna find the trash? They're gonna find the trash in the trail debris that I'm gonna be talking about. As far as the trail debris goes, we had 4 bids. It came, you saw the information in the handouts. I don't know if you have a chance to look over every detail of it, but there's one bid that stands out, and that's the one we're going to bring forward to you from the committee to go to the full commission here that we want you to approve and forward it on to the Board of Governors for approval. And that is with the Wildlife and Wetlands Solutions Company. And the bid for that is $46,800. And what does that involve? Let me try to explain it to you so you have some perspective on what the actual amount of money is going to be doing. And in your handout, there was a map, they have a copy of it here today. So make sure everybody has that copy, because it's important to note on here. There's the black lines are the trails, the dotted lines are the trails. There's over 2 miles of trails at Miles Kimberly Park. And the disc golf course intertwines amongst those. The disc golf course measures 1.2 miles if you go from tee to tee to tee in a straight line. But the course doesn't go that way, it angles a little, so it's actually longer than 1.2 miles. But the problem is it intertwines, and this logging that was done back in 2018, they took the big parts of the lumber they wanted, and the logging made $12,000 from that. $5,000 went to the person that arranged it, or the company, or whatever. And I don't know if the parks or the county made $7,455. So that's sitting somewhere, so maybe that could defer in our minds some of the costs that this is going to be for us to approve. And why I say a green light on this is because I do feel there's a liability issue involved with the county. If somebody gets hurt on this, people have already been hurt. I was out there and I watched kids throw their disc golf. The disc goes into a pile of timber, and they have to go in and look for it. And it's harder to find, number one. Number two, they have to climb over the timber to get to it. So the cleanup is really a necessary thing to do. It's our top priority from our committee. We'll stop on everything else to get this done. And I think our Parks and Rec Commission, I'm being a little selfish here, but I think it's important. We should pause on other issues that we're approving too, not the fish. I'll go for the fish and some other little stuff and whatnot. But I mean, any other big ticket items we should think twice about and give this the top priority. And it's not because I'm the Miles Kimberly Committee, maybe that's part of it, but I think for the Parks and Rec, it's the right thing to do. Now, where are we going to get the money? Well, it was talked about a little earlier. Is it a maintenance? Well, yes, it is a maintenance. There's a disc golf course there that was put up in the early part of the century in 2000 or 2001. Maybe somebody can correct me where it is, but it's been there about 20 years. It's been worked on, the pads have been replaced by the disc golfers themselves. They contributed to putting in the cement to concrete tees that are there now. They used to be rubberized, and Steve used to be out on that. What happened to those, why they were slipped there, why they were replaced. But the disc golfers, they used it a lot, went out and they did some of the work on that. We provided the equipment, or the concrete and the framing, but they did the work. So they're really committed to it. I was out there last week a couple of times walking the trails. And I was amazed at the number of disc golfers out there. I was amazed at the number of soccer field people that were out there just practicing. They're not playing yet. They're out there, I'm freezing, I got 3 coats on, and they got their in shorts around. That's our age difference, I guess. But anyway, where we're going to get this money, part of this is maintenance. Anything that involves a disc golf trail itself, that's 1.2 miles to me, should come from maintenance. We can check on that. We should check on that. Now, there's one trail here. If you look at the east of on the black lines, the eastern side trail, that's a trail that's been existed for some time. I found old evidence of that. But that's, and it's been neglected for so long that it's also a bit of a hazard for people walking in there. There are stumps in there, there are bushes and branches in there. There's not a lot of trail debris from the 18 timber cutting on that trail. There is in a couple of places where you see close to T's 12 and 15, and it needs clean up that way. But it's almost like a regeneration or renovation of that trail. It's so hard to follow. So I wonder if some of the funding from that can't come from capital outlays. We're creating a new trail, if you will. It's not a new trail, but it's almost like we're creating one. I walked that trail. I've walked all all the trails, the golf course, everything we past couple of weeks. And the first time I walked the trail I'm talking about on the eastern one, I got lost. Why did I get lost? Because some of the markers got blown down and 2 in a row. And you have, the only way you can keep on the trail, for me anyway, was to follow the markers. And if you lose a marker, I got off. I had to call Scott and say, Scott, where am I? I don't know where I am. And then I started off in the north end and came south. Well, I was smart enough to start at the south end, go north the next time, and I was successful in making it the whole way. And put a few markers along the way to make it easier. But that's a trail that's been there. I found evidence of that it's been there a long time. There was an old sign on a big tree, had an arrow with some old red paint on it. And who knows what arrow, I have no idea, but it's been there a while, and it needs to be regenerated. The other trail, the Patrick Highlands Loop, is in good shape, except for the first part of where the logging was done by these Phyllis 7 and 8, I should say. But how we can accomplish paying for this is I don't know, it's up to us as a full commission to figure out how before we send it on to the board of commissioners. Because if we don't do our due diligence and get this right, we're not going to approve it. So the work has to be done by this whole commission. Our committee of 4, we've done what we can do about this, but I can tell you all sorts of reasons why we should approve this. I can tell you all sorts of reasons why I think the cost is probably appropriate in researching. I didn't know what a forestry mulcher was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, but I do now. I didn't know what a skid steer was, but I do now. I didn't know what an excavator was, but I do now. So I can go on and on about this. We don't waste forever, but I really want you to get a feel for the scope of this project and why it's so important to get done. And why we'll forego anything else our committee will to get this done. This year, it's just this year. And we've got another issue on the table, and we're putting that on because we feel you got to put out a lot of balloons to get anything done. But I really think we would be foolish to not do all of this project, not even to try to say, well, can we do one part and not do the other part? Part of it has to do with mobilization. The firm that we're hiring to do that we would like to hire, and we recommend the board of governors hire to do this, is in Southport and can burn an hour away. So they have a 10-hour day, and they get paid. If you look at the one of the high items of why it's expensive is $15,000. No, it's $46,000, and the labor costs are $16,000 in a breakdown. Part of that is there's so many man hours, and it's $50 per hour. These guys, even when they charge $50 an hour just to drive here, and $50 an hour while they're working, and that's maybe a little overinflated, but they have overhead and they have other profit motive that's all tied into their bid. The bid just includes when it's broken down into machinery cost, into labor, and into maintenance, things like that. But that's the 46.8, doesn't include profit, doesn't include the overhead of the company. I wish they would have done that because then we get a better breakdown and know exactly what we're paying for. But I researched how much does it cost to run a forestry mulcher, and they're in the ballpark for that. How about an excavator? Same thing. How about a steer scoop? Same thing. I called 2 different equipment rental places and check things out, and they're in the ballpark, a little higher than the rentals. And if you have a daily rental, it's a lot more than if you have a weekly rental. Weekly rental, you can save some money. But if I cost all that out, for example, all the equipment, say for the forestry mulcher is $21,000. Well, when I looked at the comparison with weekly rentals for the 2 rental companies, I came up with 15 to 18. So they're a little high in there, but I think it's due to the fact that they didn't itemize everything. They wrote everything into just 5 different items that they tabulated up to get to the 46.8. What else can I say about this to convince you that this is an important thing to do? They have a crew of 3, they're well qualified. I looked at their credentials. I called all the references. The references came back all positive. For labor costs, I told you about it. They're $50 an hour. When they're working, it's probably appropriate. Their drive time they should cut it back, but I mean, we're nickel and diming, and I don't think we should do that. Because there is the profit that's not included in this bid, and there's not the overhead of the organization that's not in this bid. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Did the RFP that went out and therefore the bid that's come back, did that cover?
Speak a little louder for me, Dave, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did the RFP cover and therefore the response from Wetland Solutions, did it include the trail reopening or reconstituting that you were describing for the long outside
Of
trail?
the long outside path, that's the day, they're gonna spend 5 days on that path, just with the forestry mulcher to clear that out. There's a lot of stumps in there that need grinding, there's a lot of bush, it's overgrown. And it's a bit of a trip hazard. I only fell one time in 2 trips, but it is a trip hazard. It's
So
not
it
a
doesn't-
trail I would take my wife on. I thought about having her come along on one trip, and I said, no, you don't wanna come back to the first one she did.
So the cleanup that we put out the request for bids includes all of the trails?
Everything, because all the trails, the Patrick Hobbins loop does not need a lot of work, it just needs work at the start and the end of it, towards where the tees are, for the disc golf. Scott, you should weigh in here and help out here and comment on some of these. Scott knows as much about this as I do, on what's going on. He's the one that met with the Kafkas, who was the owner of the company. He had a supervised visit with him.
Well, what are the other bids?
The other bids you want to know about, you'll be surprised, the top bid was $250,000. And his write-up wasn't that superb, but the next bid was $166,600. His write-up, he was with Leelanau Landworks, it was really an excellent write-up. He didn't do a good breakdown on cost. He wanted some mobilization costs before they even started the project of $40,000. He wanted $40,000 before it started.
You mean Leelanau? Or which one?
Leelanau Landworks.
I mean, when I started looking at those bids, I know a little bit about their work, and something's wrong here. We got bid 48,000. I mean, are we
It's
getting
46,000. The fourth bid, the one I mentioned, was 15,000, but he didn't qualify because he didn't do anything.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at these two, I know both of them. I don't know this one myself, or I've never heard of them. And, there's that much, there's $100,000 difference.
There's $100,000 difference. Scott, you want to speak to that? He met all 3 of these people. He did not meet the one. This last one for 15,000. He just came out on his own to look at the property. Maybe he came out, we don't know. He didn't have a supervised visit to the property.
My feeling is they were gonna rent the equipment, the higher bids once. And the highest one didn't really have a very clear understanding of the scope of the project. He kept asking me the same questions that I tell him. He's like, you want the whole woods cleared? No, it's specified exactly what we want to do. And he just couldn't get it through his head.
So you're looking at that, I would say.
It's an obvious either.
I would say partial didn't want.
The second lowest one didn't have the equipment either. And
Partial does really, really good work, but I know they're really, really good.
and we have worked with Wildlife and Wetlands, as this committee has. So they've done work at Veronica Valley for us.
I was definitely concerned about the disparity between the bids. And so I extensively looked through all these bids, except for the $15,000 portion. We looked at it, he just didn't do anything correctly. But like I say, the first 2, especially the 155, he had a nice write-up. He didn't break down his cost. He had this mobilization cost, $42K. And then he wanted full payment 30 days after completion, for 124. But I talked to the Wildlife and Wetlands people, and I asked them several questions, and I'll share with you that. The equipment, they own some of their own equipment. They own the forestry mulchers, a Lamb Track. It's called the LTR 6140, if anybody knows what that is. It's a very good machine. It's 140 horsepower, and it's considered to be very quality based on what I've seen. And I looked at videos of it and whatnot. They will rent the excavator and the skid steer. They explained to me why they needed all these tools for the different trails. The mulcher is gonna be there the whole time for all 14 days. It's the only one being used pretty much for that for that eastern trail I mentioned. The others, the skid steer's got a gripper on it. It's gonna take some of these logs that they were taken away and pick them up and move them or take them away and cut them up or whatever. They get those out of the way. The mulch will be there too, because there's a lot of stuff that can be mulched on the disc golf course and on the other trails that are there. And the excavator is to, I guess, bring some of that out too. They need the excavator and the skid steer with this grabber. And you guys know more about heavy equipment than I do, and I realize that your input is needed to make this come together to make sure we get the green light to get this approved by the Board of Governors. I talked about the crew. I reviewed their credentials. It's just a crew of 3. For the first 5 days, just one person's going to be out there with the forestry mulcher on that one trail. And then for the other 9 days, there'll be a crew of 3 here for all the rest of the trails and the golf tees and just golf course. And then the labor.
Todd, did you have a question?
Yeah, when you're done, go ahead.
Well, the labor cost, as I mentioned, I talked about, asked him, what's your work day? And she said 10 hours. And she broke it down into the 8 hours and 2 hours drive time. And what I didn't do is I didn't question the $50 because, you can't, this is, if we change anything in the agreement or something, you have to open it up to all the other bidders if there's something else. I talked to Judge Yannick about it, and I was cautious about what I asked and what I didn't ask. So there's unanswered questions, but I didn't know how to approach some of them. So I just listened to what they had to say and wrote it down, and I'm coming here to you so we can fine tune this and make it the best possible package we can, most attractive, so that somebody somewhere realizes that we have to take money out of this fund, that fund, whatever fund we have to take it out of to get this done. Maybe there's a legal defense fund. There's truly a liability issue of leaving this go. This has been like this since 2018.
It's been like that longer,
Scott
since the storm.
Yeah. A lot, some of the damage has been from the storm from 2015.
Yeah, it's been.
Sorry, I still can't hear you.
Some of it is from the storm from 2015. A lot of that didn't get cleared up. It was just pushed to the side. So it's not all just logging. You can't pin it on the loggers totally.
Right.
So.
Okay, one thing I do want to mention, what we're not talking about, you can walk through Miles Kimberly, and in the front, there's all down trees like there are at the state park and all these other places. We're not talking about all that. We're not talking about anything that's way off into the woods or anything. We're talking about all the debris, the piles that are along the trails and that are in the disc golf course area. And one thing I should share with you, I think this is important too, why the cost and the type of job that they're going to do. There's some page. Apologize on this handout if you have it. The pages aren't even numbered. The work plan. This is important to listen to, I think. I told you about the emergency trail the first 5 days. The mulcher is going to go through there and just follow those markers and make that trail better. And it's been for a long time.
Don, did you ask, is there a specific amount of footage away from the trail?
That's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
Just keeps preempted.
Right.
You read it already. So
Yes.
it's good. I was getting there.
I just want to make that clear because it's,
on the map that I have here, you've got 2 maps actually. The other map you have showed the sea trail, emergency trail. I took those names out of there. I'm working with Rob Herman on getting the exact mileage. We just said leave them the way they are. And there's a trail there, it looks like a sea, the little arc thing, that's called the sea trail. They're gonna clear all the debris within 50 foot of each side of the center line of that trail. The disc golf course area, they're going to clear the disc golf area 100 foot in each direction from the center line of the tee box line to the basket all the way, and 100 foot behind the basket. Since people are gonna throw it over, they're gonna throw it to the side. So that'll really make it, improve the course tremendously for these folks. So there's a lot that they're gonna do there. So it's 100 feet, just think of 100 feet in each direction and behind the basket. So that's gonna be 100 feet all the way around for that whole disc course. And some of them curve out, they're not straight lines, they curve, they bend around. There's trees in the way, and they like some obstacles, but not these obstacles. The other thing is, if you're at one basket, you're going to the next tee, there's a trail that gets to that, and that's sometimes a little longer, shorter, whatever. They're gonna make sure that's cleared 20 foot in each direction of the center line of that trail. So you got about 40-foot wide trail going to the next tee. And these people, they play, these disc golfers, they don't have one disc, they have 6 discs each of them. They play in groups of 4 to 6. And it's amazing the number of people that are out there, they haven't been out there, that are playing disc golf. I think it's as popular as the soccer, as the baseball, as who knows what. We owe it to them, and we owe it to the county to clean up this mess. So I really wish we would, there's questions, and we gotta
I have a comment.
make this happen, and the sooner the better.
I have a comment. As far as the company goes, through the Conservation District, there have been, even when we were back in Lake Leelanau, which is years ago, this group was working with invasive species eradication. They pulled into the yard down there with a Kubota with tracks on it, and they could go literally anywhere on the shoreline in this county with that machine to be able to spray Phragmites. And they were the kingpin for the Phragmites eradication effort in this county, and just did a heck of a job. Very upstanding company doing that. And on top of that, Cameron Ross, our forester, was involved with them in a demonstration or some capacity. Maybe they're doing work for a client or whatever, but she was able to talk with them and see the machine run and see how they operated with that machine, and was extraordinarily impressed, and came back to the office and was singing the praises of that machine and how they worked with it. So there's a little bit there to maybe, Rick, help you feel a little better about the company.
I'm not familiar with it. The problem I have is when I see there's $100,000 difference between them and the other bids, I don't want to get stuck like we did with this building. We got this building done cheap, now look at it, we're paying out through the nose afterwards. I just want to make sure we have the right thing, make sure that, I don't know if we require them to be bonded, but I want to make sure we're protected. That, we go with them for 46,000, they get halfway through it and they can't do it, when we probably should have somebody else. I mean, there's $100,000 difference here.
Well, if they get halfway through, they haven't been paid, number one.
Well, it doesn't matter, it's, I don't want to, whoever starts has got to finish it.
Well, I agree with you. The disparity between the bids bothered me, and that's why I spent a lot of time looking at the 2 upper bids and this bid. And I tried to compare as much as I could with cost and ability and what they would do, the cost per hour. And I walked all the trails. I walked the whole disc golf course twice, all the trails. I've been on the trails twice in the past couple of weeks, just looking to see what was there, and talking to different people about. I'm a little vague on cost of machinery a little bit, but then rental, and I told you that they're, in fact, if anything, they're a little high, but they do have to make a profit. So I think this is a fair bid. I think the other bid is higher than it should be. And maybe there's some reason for that. Maybe they think they do it a different way. I don't know. Their rental, they didn't break it down, so I cannot tell you that. But I will say one thing, just to add on what Steve said, one of the things that impressed me when I talked to these people is, and I talked to the 3 references, work references, not personal references. Personal references is another issue. I can talk about that later if you want. They were not bad, they just didn't answer the phone. And that's all. But I was impressed with how environmentally conscious that they have. And I kind of like that, and it goes along with what Steve said about what their interests are. So they're diversified. I even asked him, I said, gee, this isn't the type of work you kind of do. I asked him about that, he says, no, yes, we do this also. And I called the first reference. It's let's see.
Okay, Todd, did you have a question?
I'm good, Case.
Okay, Melinda?
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna come about this from a little bit different angle. We all know there needs to be a lot of work done in that park. However, I look at it and think, wow, $46,000. I know tree work is very expensive, but do we really want to spend $46,000 this year on those trails? And we know there's liability, our insurance company knows there's liability. And I hate to close down those trails. I mean, they are open for hikers, et cetera. But I'm struggling over spending $46,000 on it. Maybe we could rebid it a little bit. Yeah, 100 feet is nice, but do we really need to do 100 feet? You know, can we do 50 feet? 25 feet? I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm really struggling over 46,000 on parks trails. The other thing, and all we have in the packet is only this one company's information. We don't have anything on the first one, like what is the 15,000? What did they offer? What did Tree Works offer on Coopersville?
If I may, the $16,000 one was, we don't even know if they came to the park. They were supposed to make an appointment with me and I was supposed to show them around. I don't know who this company was. They never contacted anybody at the county.
Yeah,
So
that's
by that,
a double check.
really
Are they just saying, yeah, we're gonna clear this trail, it's 10 feet wide, we're gonna clear this trail at 10 feet wide? We don't know, we didn't get.
So, yeah, you could just push off berms for that, drive the tractor through there and just make it worse than it already is.
The site visit was a requirement of the bid. And if they didn't visit the park, they should be thrown out.
Are you saying all these trails gotta be 100 feet?
I think he said the
The
disc golf.
disc golf is 100 feet and it's not every hole. It's varying degrees of piles of wood. I don't know how to explain it, but
Just to give them space for.
some don't need any work, some need a lot of work. Some are very steep hills, some are very flat. It's super varied back there.
Scott, how was the 100 feet decided? Was that made in conjunction with the disc golfers? Was that?
I spoke with some of the disc golfers
And
and,
so.
how far they throw and
I think you gotta ask the people that use that disc golf area. The one thing I would say that I'd agree with 100 feet for the disc golf. I'm not sure if that sea trail needs a 50-foot clearance on each side. I question that.
it's 50-footer line of sight, whichever short. So
Well, they're gonna need that much debris to get all the chips put down for the trails.
that's just gonna lay the
As
chips.
they go along. I mean, so, shoot, I'd rather have the whole darn thing done, but, and I have no problem with the park needing to be done, because it does. My kids have been going there my daughter's 19, so pretty close to 19 years, and when it got destroyed, like our own land did during the big storm, it's been bad there. But to Melinda's point, we would be at a crossroads spending the 15,000 anymore. So I mean, when you jump up to 45 or 120 or 360, whatever, can we make it a 2-year project and do the disc part? And then next year do the back trails? I mean, it's gonna be pretty much the same company doing it anyway, and it would cut down on time and labor. But to Melinda's point, as a commissioner, they're gonna look at a $46,000 bill and say, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
As much as we do need the parks, and everybody here knows that I'm a firm believer, and if you don't want to maintain it, don't own it, get rid of it. So we do need to maintain.
If there's so much interlocking between that's why I handed out that map. The disc course goes through and it crosses over and goes around the trail.
Yeah, but not to the back part.
No, that one eastern section, you're right. You could eliminate that. I would say that would be, that's an option, there's no question about that. That's an option. And that would take 5 days off the price. But the thing is, we would lose that trail to further development and growth for maybe 1 year.
For a year.
But then there's the mobilization costs of bringing them back out. And then the destruction of these heavy equipment does to the lawn coming in that, I say if it's there.
They'd have an easier way to get in
Keep
though,
it there,
if
and
it
they
was
have an
already
easier way to
done.
get to the trails, right? So
But
there's
for-
reasons to do it. If we can come up with the money to do it all, that would be the preferred thing, just from the point of view of getting it done, and it's all done, it all looks the same. The park's gonna change, you take care of this, all that mulch is gonna come down and all that, it's gonna solve one problem, then you're gonna get another, is, oh, what came through here, destruction bill in a sense. But it's mulched, it's ground cover for the trails, you're right about that. But it also, you want it to come back to its natural state a little too, and if we do it piecemeal, it'll take longer for it to come back to that. And I would personally recommend we do the whole thing if we can't feasibly do that. Breaking off that northern trail and ignoring it, it's been ignored for quite a while. I don't know how Scott feels about that, but it's still an emergency trail because he felt it's important to have that to get in there if there's a problem on the other trails. It's going to be a little wider, maybe, or easier to get to, or what. I don't know why it was called the emergency trail. But
That's where you had your emergency, wasn't it, Scott?
John,
John, go ahead.
The other way
John,
to
go
look at
ahead.
this. Oh,
This job is needed, and we all know it's needed. It's been needed ever since that big storm went through. And we shouldn't just piecemeal it. I think you did a very good job in writing up these specs. I really commend Scott for going out there, and I believe exactly what he said. We showed him this, we showed him that. This is a reputable contractor. He's done work for us before. It's very dangerous to stop this and then say, well, let's go out for bid again. These guys ain't gonna come and bid again. We went out for bids. Now, a quote is different than going out for bids. A couple of these guys might have not known what they were doing, but I believe Scott, and he said he showed them all what to do. Some just price it out and say, I'm not coming here again. But we've worked with this guy before. I think we should do the whole thing. And I believe the work he did, he went over those bids very thoroughly, and he didn't ask me, what does a truck cost and what does this cost? So he picked it apart, and I believe he picked it apart, and I think it's a good bid. We should go to the Board of Commissioners saying it's a good bid. If they say we don't want to spend any more money, they own these parks. It's not that safe out there. We should say it came from Parks and Rec, and we spent we can't spend an hour telling them all this, that's for sure. But we should say what we did and how it was thoroughly picked apart, and we got a good contractor, and it's a tight bid. We need to do it all and not do part this year and part next year. We might not have more money this year, whatever. But we need to do it. That's my position and I'm gonna vote for it.
Hand up first.
John, I have no problem with doing the whole thing, but what I do have a problem with is it going to the commissioners and they say no to everything.
Have them tell us.
Well, then, I mean, you gotta give them an alternative.
Yeah.
No, if we go in with it, if we go in with an alternative, that's what we're gonna end up with. We need to do our job as Parks and Rec commissioners to pitch our best pitch to the Board of Commissioners and tell them why this is the best option. Not come up with a backup plan or tell them, well, if you don't approve this, we can do this. If they don't approve it, then we'll come back to this board and go back to square one. But we need to do our jobs, and I'm willing to go to bat with Don, whatever we need to do to make this happen. I am, personally am not happy with this amount of money being spent on the tree cleanup. I think it's a shame. But it is what it is. We have a lot of bids to look at here. We have one that's $250,000, right or wrong. $250,000 is crazy. I think $46,000 is also a little bit crazy, but get that job done. I mean, we've got the bids in front of us, and that's what we have to go off of, like it or not. I mean, any of us here have the right to vote against it. If it passes, we need to do our job of pitching to the commissioners and giving them our best option.
I would say the best way to approach the Board of Commissioners is for this commission, to be unanimously in favor of this proposal. If we're not, then it's not gonna work.
No, I'll vote for it, but I'm on different boards throughout the county, just like Casey is. And you know how different boards go, Case.
Well, yeah,
I mean, you might
I
be a
certainly,
exception and you might not, but you just said don't have a backup plan. Always
Well, we
have
can
a
have-
backup plan.
and I do know, I think it's going to be a tough sell to the Board of Commissioners. There's no doubt about that. But
I wish you luck. I'll vote yes for it right now, so just put it up there. Let's go.
we
We have
will.
more work to do to make that happen where it's unanimous in this commission. And we should not take it out of this commission unless it's unanimous here that we agree this is the right thing to do. Two things about break it up into years. Well, this has already been broken up into years. This proposal went in before I was even on this board, and I've been on this board over a year.
You have no idea
So
how
I
many
know.
proposals we've
Back
gone
and back
over
and
the
back.
years.
I understand.
Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I had a comment. I'm going to support what Casey said. When we went out and we trusted Scott to put together a good RFP, which he did, and we went out to bids, and here's what we got. I look at the high bids as people that are really busy. If I have a company and I'm really busy, and in this county, I can name 150, 250, 350 businesses that are really busy. They do some bids, but they put them sky high. You know, if I'm so busy, I can't get all my work done, but if this guy wants to put this kind of money on the table, we'll find a way to do it. And I will make hay while the sun shines. And they're doing it. I mean, they're raking it in. This is harvest time for everybody in the construction industry, period. And everybody that wants to sell 1 square inch of land in the county, they're making a bundle. And these upper bids are just throwouts. We have one bid that makes sense.
Right.
It's higher than I want. I agree with Casey. We've got to go with it. We went out to bids. We got to go with it. And between now and next month, maybe a couple of us can put our heads together and talk with Jen and try to figure out, you know, how is the best way to present this. But I think Casey's right. We're stuck. I mean, we went out to bids. And this is the only one in my mind that makes sense. Let's vote for it and let's give it our best shot.
Go ahead and make a motion.
Can I ask one question? If
Yeah,
part
go
of our
ahead, Dave.
plan, if we vote for this, because I'm in favor of it as well, what do we need to have an answer for the Board of Commissioners working with Jen, where the money's gonna come from?
Well, going in, we're gonna have to have that. We're gonna have to show what we're up against, we're gonna have to show our budget, we're gonna have to show where this thing is, and quite obviously, it's tall. It really is. And like Casey said, it's a really hard sell for the commissioners. It really is, but we're stuck. I mean, I think that's where we need to go to figure out if it'll fly or not. And we either have a real solid strategy going in and we can see where this would happen and the county commissioners feel like it's a good thing and it's gonna work, or they don't. But I mean, we're kind of stuck as a commission, I think. We didn't get that $30,000, $25,000 bid that we thought we were gonna get. We got stuff that was different, so.
Well, this is the year of Miles Kimberly, right? Weren't we gonna put most of our resources into Miles Kimberly this year?
You got more to do,
Well, I understand. Maybe we should do all of it.
but I hope each discussion.
Believe me, but I'll vote yes on this, but I'll be interested to see how.
Yeah, I
it
know
comes back.
exactly what you're saying. I really do.
Let me ask the group again, is it feasible or not, am I not being reasonable to think that some of the funding can come out of maintenance for the
And we-
salt area?
Those are Jen.
Those are Jen's,
Yeah,
those are
Don, we're
Jen's
gonna-
Those are
questions.
Jen's questions.
I think we're
Pass
ready.
me on the way here. Let it go.
Casey,
Don, I think we're ready for a motion here, and then we're gonna have some homework to do.
I move
Somebody wanna-
that we
I'll make,
recommend, go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll
Go ahead
second
with
it.
this bid from
Okay, there's support. for-
Wildlife.
There's a motion and support for us to move to recommend approval of this bid to the Board of Commissioners. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Casey?
Yeah.
Casey, can we use the recommendation from the committee meeting?
Yes, that's fine.
That's worded pretty good.
Okay,
I was just trying to give an abbreviation there.
yeah, I get it.
hold on, I'm sorry.
Laurel, you want to read that?
So Mr. Polpa is making the motion by Polpa to recommend to the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners to accept the bid from Wildlife and Wetlands Solutions for the trail debris cleanup at Miles Kimberly Park in an amount not to exceed $46,800.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Support.
Okay.
But I would say, after we try to determine where we think the funding is coming from and solve some other issues, I don't want this to go to the full board of governors till we clean this up a little. I think it's a mistake to do that.
Money wise, yeah.
Money-wise, any-wise, if there's any, I still feel I hate to do this because I want to drag it. I would love that to go to them, to the Board of Commissioners in May, but if we can't unanimously support this,
You have people
it's
on your
not going to
committee.
go anywhere. So
Yeah.
You already have unanimous support.
No, he does not.
Oh.
Point of order,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, you were in the middle of calling your question when you were interrupted.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries. Melinda, you want to vote no, or is there another one there?
No, just Melinda.
Okay. Yes, Don, we have homework to do before we go there. That's no problem.
Well, I hate to even bring it up because it's our money. But, sorry, I will. We spent this time prioritizing, and the two things that came up highest on our list, the 7. The second one was the grub shack. That's been tossed around for a lot of years too. This is kicking the can down the road again. At the last meeting, I think everybody got that. Scott sent out a letter he shared that was written in 2011, all the problems that the grub shack has. And said you shouldn't put building until the first 2 are done. That was the electrical and the stairs or something like that. And so I think those are taken care of because people are going in and out of the building. But it's deteriorating, and something has to be done. So the committee has recommended that we do a renovation. We had three options on this. One was to tear it down and replace it, one was to renovate it, and one was to relocate it. And the idea to renovate it and fix it up a little, at a cost of under $10,000, so it was approved by our committee. And Michael Smith took the lead on that, and I'd like him to just address it and summarize some of the issues about why we should be doing this also, and why it's an issue today.
What's your recommendation?
Excuse?
The recommendation is to renew the grub shack. And what we would do there, it's been on the board and decisions have been made to promote a lot of different things with this particular shack. And it has really deteriorated. It's an eyesore. When you drive into the park, it's not pleasant looking. The shingles are curling up. The paint is falling off. There's areas that need to be addressed in terms of the trim. It too is falling off in places. It's really pretty unsightly, and Scott has done his best to make a good presentation at this park, and it's kind of difficult when you drive in and you see this building. So we looked at all the options there, as Don stated. What we can do for a reasonable amount of money is remove the shingles, replace the sheeting that needs to be replaced where needed, replace and repair the trim and the fascia, replace and repair the siding where needed, replace the lattice to the areas on the north and the east side of the building, install a 5x5 or a 5x6 boxed area inside the building to basically make it more safe for those that are within the building, children in particular. And have a 3-foot door on that boxed in area around the waterworks. That was suggested, I think, by Steve, and I think that was a good idea. Was that you that brought that up, Steve?
It might have been.
Okay. Anyway, good idea, because there's piping that's laid on the floor, and if somebody was to go across that area not really paying attention, then they could fall down and hurt themselves. So I think that was a good idea. On the front of the building, there's a little kiosk there, and with the waterworks inside, we would make a better presentation of that. On the side of the building, this is called a grub shack because apparently when it was built in 1972 by the Lions Club, it was a place for gathering, and they ate there and had meetings there. And there's a side window with a shelf in front of it to the outside. So it's kind of it has a little bit of a history that's nice. In addition to wrapping the waterworks inside, on the outside of the building, there's an area where the water has been draining underneath the building. So there's a little bit of a washout. And so we want to protect that area from that. And so dig the south side of the building out a bit so that we put in some drain tile there. And then that would be deposited on the east side on the grass. With all of this being done, I've had some people out there, and we will be able to accomplish this for less than $10,000. So I submit that because of the efficiency of the board, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and do this, because then the presentation of the park would be better. At some point or another, when we have more money to spend, we can move the building, do something else. There's lots of things that can be done out there, but I think that's one eyesore that could be transposed into something that's pleasing to the eye. Thank you. Any questions at all?
Dave?
Go ahead, Dave.
Do I still understand correctly that between these two projects, you still are saying, recommending that the trail cleanup is far more important than the grub shack?
That is correct.
And it seems to me the money are going to compete with each other. And from what I'm hearing, it seems to me the grub shack work ought to be left till another year
If,
at
if,
this point, because we don't know what we're doing with the.
if we can achieve the trail cleanup, if you were to go out there and just take a movie along that trail, it's shocking. I mean, it's just a mess. Okay.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I just want to know, your committee is saying trail cleanup's number one.
Mhm.
I'm hearing about the grub shack. It's number two. Okay, my opinion is let's leave the grub shack till later, because we've got homework to do and quite a sales job if we're gonna get this trail cleaned up this year.
Correct.
I think the only question at this point for our commission is, our discussion point about the project, and then the discussion about whether we should go out to bids or not. And at this point in time, we've already gone out to bids on a big project that is really big, and I think it would be inappropriate to go out for bids on a project until we clear or know what we're doing with the cleanup situation. So I think it's recommended to move forward to this commission. At this point in time, I think we should push this off till next month before we prematurely go out to bids. In my mind, we can't go out to bids quite yet on this unless I'm mistaken. No, but that's my comment.
I think that's the general consensus here, if I can speak.
Yeah, we put our heads together to come up with these two projects because both need to be done. And so, yeah, we just have options that way. But the main focus is the trail cleanup.
Go ahead, Don.
So I will make a recommendation. We hold off on any recommendation to submit a bid regarding anything to do with the grub shack at this time.
Okay. Hearing that, we'll move on to the next topic, which was the baseball field. I got a call from Randy Weber, JV baseball for Glen Lake Schools, and he was inquiring about our thoughts, options, maybe of possibly building a JV baseball and a JV softball field at Miles Kimberly somewhere. Similar to the start of the tennis court discussions that went nowhere. I have a different feeling of this time. John, the school district itself and the superintendent, John Hoover, are much more eager to get projects done, spend down some of their fund balance right now. Basically, this is just the start of the whole conversation and getting the board's feel. The last time with the tennis courts, the way it progressed was I myself and Ty Wessel at the time, he was the chairman of Miles Kimberly Park, and Chet met with Sanders Scott and the tennis coach to start discussion about it. I'm willing to proceed if there's an interest in this board to see where it goes. Their problem at the school right now is that there's two ball fields. There's a baseball field and a softball field. The JV and the varsity are not able to practice at the same time. And also to be able to kind of the tennis court thing, also to be able to hold tournaments. But it was just very brief dialogue. He wanted me to bring it to this committee or this commission and see what the feel is for it and see if we want to pursue it any farther than what it is.
Are they talking as the original tennis court discussion? Are they talking about Glen Lake schools paying for this?
Yeah, in some, he didn't have the of all of that. Obviously, this is just a very, very early stages of discussion. But I know he did say that the school district is, wants to spend some money on it. Whether we did some sort of partnership or if we lease the land, however that all works. But yes, they're not expecting us to build them completely. I mean, I don't really don't know what that is, but his statement was, it was that the school is ready to throw some money at it. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you. We have 3 ball diamonds already in Miles Kimberly. He's not talking about those. I have to defer to Steve on this. He knows about the ball fields, what they're used for. He uses them right now. Maybe they're not the right size or not softball. I don't know. Steve?
Yeah.
They're probably thinking something different, right, Casey?
Yes. Whether, and he didn't have a whole lot of knowledge on the park. He has looked at the ball fields that are there. Basically 2 of those are active. The third one closest to the driveway is less active. His concerns with that one were if you built a ball field there or did something there, you got foul balls going towards cars and all that stuff. I think his real interest is in the field across the street, which was also same as the tennis courts. But his thought, it's not solely just for the school's use. They would be open to the public as well. When we had discussed the tennis courts, if they were to be built, there would be some sort of stipulation where the school comes, but after that, it's fair game. If there was a game or a tournament or so on, school kind of got first chance at it, but other than that, they'd be open to the public.
Well, I would think we'd be interested in at least continuing the conversation.
That was kind of my thought. I mean, it's very early on and it's just him and I. There's no money discussion, no contract discussion, none of that stuff. And we had several meetings between Chet, myself and Ty and Xander Scott, but before the tennis court thing died out and they built them right at the school there. So this isn't a for sure thing by any means, but just starting the discussion, I suppose. So if that, if there's at least some interest in seeing where it goes, I can proceed farther, as long as it's obviously not making any decisions, but get a hold of Chet and see if we can set up a meeting with Don and myself and John Hoover and Chet and see where things go.
I think just in point of fact, just being a good neighbor, we should entertain what they have to say and talk about it. I don't see any harm in that.
Okay, if I can get a hold of Chet and get something set up, and I'll bring it back to this board when there's something to bring back. We're done.
I got you back in plan already, Casey.
And on that, I need to get to my kids' soccer practice. So Dave, would you be willing to take over?
Okay.
Where are you going for soccer practice?
You guys, yes, actually, I'm going to Miles Kimberly, so I'll check things out. Just walk in there.
Miles Kimberly. See, everybody uses that.
So I don't know what the next item is about, who's speaking on it. This is from Old Settlers Park Committee. Glen Arbor Arts Center proposed event.
Mr.
We
Chair.
have knowledge to it, Chair.
Weeds.
I thought the last minute said something about somebody following up with the Glen Arbor Art Center on any kind of specifics. That's why I left it in here.
I don't know where that ended up. Maybe I should do some research on that.
I'm sorry, who's chair of Old Settlers?
Myself.
Okay. But we have nothing on that then, right?
No.
Right.
I did a handout. This got to me yesterday. Barb Lund provided a photo of our flower patch at Old Settlers. It's pretty stunning. And she's hoping that she can do a similar thing, Scott, that they did last year behind the glass of the kiosk, kind of explaining. So I told her she's gonna get back to me. I'll email her and just let her know to talk to you and it's gonna be, here's the flowers and here's what they are kind of thing, like they did last year. But she's real proud of that photo, and they've done a bang up job there, and she and Laurel Boran and all the volunteers, and it's been a beautiful thing.
Who else is on Old Settlers committees? John, you and me,
Casey.
Steve. Oh,
In
Casey.
case, yes.
Okay, yeah, and I was just gonna see if the 28th or 29th would work this week. We were supposed to look at budget stuff too. That's all I got in my notes was to look at budget. So I don't know if we're supposed to follow up on this. Somebody else brought it to the table last month, and I thought they were supposed to ask them about the charitable. But I don't know who brought it last month. I did not.
The Glen Arbor Arts Center.
Yep, somebody brought it to the table.
Let me
See
go
if you
back.
can give me that
Let me go
contact
back to the
person.
minutes, I guess.
Okay,
I got it on my to-do.
okay.
Before we leave Old Settlers, I got a comment.
Please.
And I brought it up before. There's a lot of stuff in the Old Settlers work list of stuff that needs to get done. This Parks and Recreation Committee needs to have a budget meeting of what we want to put in for next year's budget. And I think the first crack at it, Melinda, is you guys like to see something in July, and then you guys vote on it in September.
That's the sketch of it.
It's about like that. This list, it's like, you've got stuff to do with signage, parking, accessibility spaces, the pit toilet, upgrade the playground equipment. We've been out for quotes on that. If we're gonna spend some money, the county commissioners has to say, here's our shopping list. I've only been on this thing for 15 years, and I just don't see them going anyplace. And we don't have that kind of stuff laid out to the county commissioners. We threw this $40,000 in capital improvements with nothing behind it. And we have to, define this kind of stuff for our upcoming year, so that we've got a shopping list in front of the commissioners, and if we need so much money next year, they own all these parks. But if I was on a county board of commissioner, I haven't seen anything come in front of it yet. I could be mistaken, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done.
And all the parks, is that what you're talking about, John?
What's that?
You talking about all the parks?
This is one of them, Old Settlers.
Okay, every committee's supposed to meet and put together their request to
For next
come
year.
yes, which will start actually in
But
June.
I don't know what Old Settlers had in it for this year.
Nothing, because we discussed this. We spent our budget last year on the,
Grub shack.
thank you. So it was pretty much decided that we wouldn't request anything for this year unless it was something small, because so much was spent on Old Settlers the year before.
That's what I'm saying. I think we need to get
Okay,
get
next year's a
together
new
for something
ballgame.
next year.
So,
And I know Veronica Valley, we're gonna have to spend some money next year on some of the stuff that's gotta get done. And we should make sure it's in front of the commissioners this summer and this week.
Thank you. Because I've said that before, I've gone through the budget talks in late June with Melinda, Steve, and Casey twice now, and this year, we have to have a much better, from all of us, all three parks, a much clearer shopping list.
Right.
For next year, so we know what our budget requests and recommendations are gonna be there in June. Because that's when the four of us will be meeting to look at our budget for the next year. And I know, I sense we're all doing that. Old Settlers will have to be back in that discussion for next year as well. Okay, any more there? I'll move on to the Veronica Valley Park report. Really, we can limit this right now.
I found that I was supposed to, I can make some comments on the Glen Arbor Arts Center.
Go
Because
ahead.
I did follow up and got some comments, and I don't know if it's enough to make a recommendation, but I could do that. They're gonna pass the hat. There's no charge for the event. It's a two-part, it's a orchestra / dance recital. And they anticipate about 100 people, and it'll just be past the hat. The money goes back to the group, Traverse Symphony Orchestra, to, the Glen Arbor Arts Center. It'll go back to the Glen Arbor Arts Center to do more of these kind of events. So that was an answer that I got between last meeting and this meeting.
Is there a proposed date?
Yes, it's August 12th. It'll be from 5 to 8 p.m. They'll start setup at 1 and they'll be out by 10. All cleaned up, never know they're there.
Done.
Steve, was this the issue, was this the, a request where the issue was they wanted to reserve the park and there's no reserving the park?
They know that. It's first come, first serve.
Okay.
The question was, were they gonna charge? And were they gonna make money? And they're not gonna charge, it's just gonna be a pass the hat. And they anticipate about 100 people.
It seems to me, I don't know. I know it's first come, first serve, but that's a small park and we'll have to get there early, that's all, I guess. That's what they can do. I reserve it that way. Seems like they're going through a lot and have an event. All these people come and somebody just shows up just before they get there and messes it up for them. It's a financial hit to them and everything else. And seems like there should be some accommodation, but I agree, we shouldn't change the rules. It's no reservation. There might be a way around that maybe, other than to have someone get in line at 5 in the morning or something, equivalent of that, I guess. I don't know.
Do we need a motion on anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what
Do we need a
action,
motion on anything?
what action?
This is just information.
I move that we get back to the Glen Arbor Art Center and tell them that as far as we're concerned, it's fine.
With the understanding
Is that all we need, or do they need insurance?
Because it's an unsanctioned event.
There's 100 people. How many cars would that involve? How much road frontage is that park? It's on a curve. Bare minimum, you should make sure the emergency management director is aware of this for his plan. Because he plans out all county-related events with X number of people.
So run it by Matt before
if
we
you're
okay it.
It's one thing to sit there passively and listen to music, but if they've got dancing going on, it might be smart to have some sort of insurance certificate. Somebody trips on a tree root, falls in the garden, and you don't know. I can run it past MMRMA, our insurance carrier, and get their thoughts.
That'd be good.
Have they done
Yeah,
it before?
it's a dance performance, not a dance.
Right.
Right, okay.
So there's action yet to be taken, Steve, that you're gonna take, and we don't need.
I'll withdraw the motion. Laurel's gonna run it by
Our risk management.
Risk management.
No.
Okay, on that,
Yes, thank you, sorry.
so Steve, we're good on that topic? Okay, moving on to Veronica Valley. Right now, I'll limit it to this. We passed a recommendation, it's in your documents. Motion by Christensen to recommend to the County Parks and Recreation Commission, so that's recommending to this group. To follow through with the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians 2% allocation on behalf of Bill Watson of the Youth Works Group for assistance in invasive species eradication at Veronica Valley Park. So, Veronica Valley Committee is recommending that this group pass on the application from Mr. Watson and Youth Works to the full county commission in the May meeting for their approval for submission of that application at the end of May. I will tell you, Bill has planned, it's a $50,000 project. He's seeking the request is for 22,000 support from the tribe. He has already arranged the rest of the money, so 28,000 from other sources as the local match. It will include work with, it's 3 weeks of work at Veronica. It will include at least 1 week of an organization called City Girls Farm that will bring in their goats and will manage the goats completely. The goats will not stay there at night. There will be a moving paddock. They'll be working with myself, principally in determining where, well, and with them, in determining where the goats can be most effective. We certainly have some areas that will be possible for some future prairie planting where the goats can do a lot of mowing this year and not do that mowing. So, again, we're asking this group, and I'll make a motion that the Parks and Rec Commission pass on to the full Board of Commissioners the application from Bill Watson and Youth Works for 2% allocation.
Support.
Is that clear, Laurel?
I'm just gonna use the recommendation of your committee.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you want me to state that? Okay. Motion by Barron's to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to follow through the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians 2% allocation application on behalf of Bill Watson of the Youth Works Group for assistance in invasive species eradication at Veronica Valley Park.
So we have a second on that discussion?
I'll second.
Steve already supported it.
Okay.
Discussion,
Steve did.
questions?
Just curious, how long are the goats gonna be there to take care of this problem?
Minimum of 1 week out of the 3 weeks of the work being done by Youth Works.
You say you're gonna do this for us to go, okay. Yeah. And the total cost of this project?
Well, the total project plan is roughly 50,000. 22,000 being asked is the request for the 2% allocation.
I'd like to put it in the minutes and point it out to the group that that's $50,000. That really can compare that to the 46.8 that we're gonna pay for the machinery to do it.
Well, but keep in mind, this is not any dollars out of our pockets.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that things cost, the point I'm trying to make is things cost money. We have to be realistic about this and get on board with all these projects. We need to.
So if there is no further discussion, do I hear those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. I will be carrying that action, our recommendation to the full Board of Commissioners. I will be carrying that on to them at May 11th for their May meetings, at the executive session on May 11th. So I will be following through on that. We have had approval from the commission on our proceeding with the culvert renewal, culvert replacement rather. When that is done, we will be developing some other plans for the parking lot proposals. Again, this is for next year, but we'll be bringing to this group that further work on parking lot development. I think that's it, unless we'll head towards public comment.
The number to call in for public comment is 231-256-8109.
Give that just a second and then move towards commissioner comments. So think of it as
You could actually continue because I don't show anybody to watch.
All right. Commissioner comment?
I'm okay.
None? Okay. I have none at this moment. I will entertain a motion to.
Move to adjourn.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.